What's something embarrassing you're willing to admit? Back in elementary school I slipped and fell in a watery spaghetti puke puddle. Ducker before me apparently couldn't puke into the toilet for some reason. When I hurriedly sprinted into a bathroom stall because I was yo-yoing a massive sheet. The slip caused me to land on my ass hard enough that I shat myself. So I had to waddle down to the nurse's office, drenched in puke and caked in my own sheet, and explain to her what the duck just happened. I was watching a movie with my parents when I was 7 and heard the characters talk about porn. I asked my parents what it meant and they didn't tell me, so I looked it up on our family computer. This was around Christmas time and I got so scared I wouldn't get anything for Christmas because I looked it up. So I wrote a letter to Santa apologizing. He wrote me back and said it was okay. The next year I realized Santa was my parents. It still keeps me up at night. I used to live in Alaska and the highways are pretty desolate. I drank a cup of coffee from my thermos and the urge to poo hit me hard and fast. I held it for about 2 minutes thinking the urge would pass. It didn't. So I pulled over on the shoulder, got out of my car and listened for any oncoming vehicles. Nothing. I proceeded to pull my pants down and squat by the side of the road. I was spray sheeting for about 5 minutes and just staring off into the distance enjoying the view when all of a sudden a goddamn silent as Prius pulled up to see if I needed help and saw me pushing a turd. A little boy pointed at me and screamed. Edit, for those wondering where this happened. Seaward Highway on the way from Anchorage to Seaward. Edit 2. Prius do exist in cities like Anchorage. They are mostly rentals. The first time I ever spoke in public was a debate competition when I was 13. I pissed myself in front of teachers, peers, opponents, other schools, judges, and any other descriptor for a person in that 200-person audience. I was embarrassed but decided that nothing more embarrassing would likely happen if I spoke in public again. And now I have no fear of public speaking. When I was young, I didn't know the difference between getting laid and getting laid off. Had no idea that these things are completely different. I would use them almost interchangeably. So, when my dad lost his job one year, the next day at school I went around explaining to all my classmates, yeah, things aren't going well at my house. My dad got laid yesterday. When I was in middle school I was at a birthday party for a friend of mine who lived a couple blocks down the street from me. In the middle of the party I suddenly got the biggest urge to sheet. My crush was at the party, and the only bathroom was right next to the living room where everyone was. So I knew I couldn't blow up the bathroom there. I told my friend I had to run home because my mom needed help with something. I tried calling her or my dad to come pick me up but neither answered. So I had to walk. I wanted to run, but was afraid if I did it would let loose. So I determinedly sped walk home. I got about 3 houses away from my house, and it became too much and I shat my pants. When I got home, no one was there and I realized I didn't have my key, so I was locked out. I waddled around to my sister's window as it was always unlocked, pried it open, and very carefully maneuvered my sheet covered self into the room. Unfortunately her bed was under the window, and on my way down, I smeared sheet all over one of her pillows. I went into the bathroom, cleaned up, changed my pants, threw out the sheet covered pillow, then headed back to the party. No one questioned me, and no one ever found out what happened. Edit, well sheet. I posted this then proceeded to take a nap. Then woke up to a full inbox. I was having a bad day, so thanks Reddit for cheering me up. I didn't know alpacas were animals until I was 27. I thought alpaca meant made from llama hair, much like wool is made from sheep hair. My first porn experience. I grew up in the country and was biking home and found an old nudie magazine that looked like it was there for at least a week. Rained on, driven on, and most likely already came on. But my 13-year-old self bent over, picked it up and jerked off to it right there and then on the side of the street without even getting off my bike. Twice. I couldn't flush a poo at my mate's parents' place, years and years ago, and I had no brush or poop knife to help me out. Eventually I flushed enough that it flooded the bowl to nearly overflowing levels, but it was still stuck. I heard my friend ask if I was okay through the door and I just said yep. The whole thing was stuck for like 20 minutes and I had to get out of there, but I couldn't leave my poo particled water to stagnate there. I did the only thing I could and stuck my hand in the bowl and punched that poo into a flock of fesses. It was single-handedly the atest thing that ever happened to me, but I got the problem fixed, I guess. So that was good. Yet my hand stunk like shit. Some say it still does to this day. Edit. Words. I had a tendency to get super obsessive over my crushes growing up. Total lovesick, I will straight up marry you right now obsessive. I went the whole 9 yards. Extravagant love letters. I love yous. You're perfects. Angsty writing in my journal. Weird photos and music video montages. Dreaming and daydreaming. Yeah. All the cringy creepy stuff. I was a lonely kid with a lot of feelings and an emotionally abusive home life. I didn't stop until one girl legitimately thought of me as her stalker. In a quasi-endearing way. That's when it hit home for me that my idea of love was wrong. And you have to get to know someone to have a relationship with them. I once sat on a red pastel crayon in middle school. I was wearing white pants. This was nice, thank you. I used to crank one out almost every day at my fraternity house in one of the bathrooms. I thought I was being sneaky until my senior roast. I have a scar on my pen 15 from jerking off. It got a little rug type burn on it, and being a teenager I couldn't wait till it healed to jerk off again. So it took a long time to heal and now I have a scar. I told my girlfriend that it was from a zipper accident from my youth. My girlfriend and I became a long-term thing and I didn't want to keep the truth from her. Finally told her and she made fun of me. But now we have been married for almost 9 years now. I painted my embarrassing childhood moment. img.com. About a year or so ago I was standing in line at the grocery store. Waiting to pay for my small grouping of items. The man in front of me is elderly. Maybe late 80s early 90s. He has finished his transaction and is trying to get his wallet out of his pants to pay. Now. This guy's clothes are about 2 sizes too big for him. So everything is kind of hanging off of him. Because of his advanced age and loose clothing. Reaching into his back pocket to retrieve said wallet is proving to be extremely difficult. He seems to lack the strength, dexterity, coordination to both maintain his reach and grab the wallet from the very deep and loose back pocket of his old man pants. This goes on for, without exaggeration, for like 5 solid minutes. Picture a grocery store with lots of people trying to get dinner and whatnot. And everyone is basically on hold while this guy tries to get his wallet out. To no avail. Now. Here comes the horror. Old man big pants. Without a word to me. Points his rear end at me and just looks into my eyes. I realize that he wants me to get his wallet out for him. The realization hits me and I am frozen. There are like 10 people in line behind me all watching this happen. And who want to get home in time for Jeopardy. I start to do nothing. But then realize that this dude is genuinely looking for help. So. I reach into his back pocket to try and retrieve the wallet. As quickly as possible. This is when I realize what the problem was. The dude has Costanza wallet X10. It's huge. And heavy. I am trying to get a grip on the thing and I cannot get it past the loose fabric of the deep pocket. And more folds of what I realize are his old man floppy as flesh. I swear I tried for like 30 seconds to get the thing. And couldn't. At this point I turn around and see the horror on some people's faces. Because to the untrained eye, I am a dude sticking his hand down a poor old man's pants. In a grocery store. In broad daylight. It's at this point that I give up and tell the guy, sir, it's all good, your stuff is on me, and cram my card into the machine and pay for his stuff. Like $12 bucks. NBD. He thanks me and shuffles out of the store while I pay for my stuff and slide off to my new life as a molester of the elderly. I have a terrible fear of mixing up bathrooms. Before going in one I'll check several times is it M is the triangle pointing down etc. Sometimes I'd even walk out of one after a couple steps to recheck the door. And yet sometimes I mix them up. After I bungee jumped 4 years ago I am terrified of hybrids, towers and even mountains. Everything went fine but I can't shake off the feeling and I am scared that I will suddenly jump from them. I had a nickname Blue for a while. It was short for Blue Light Special because I got lost in a Kmart when on a Boy Scout trip. I was like 11. During the early horny stages of my life, I realized I had a foot fetish. If that wasn't embarrassing enough to admit, how I figured that one out still makes me cringe to this day. I was at a friend's house. My friend's dad always had a habit of wearing his flip-flops whenever he came home from work. He left suddenly and I noticed that he left his flip-flops by the door. While my friends were distracted with video games, I got the idea of grabbing my friend's dad's flip-flops. Went to another room and placed the left flip-flop on my crotch while I smelled the right flip-flop. The result was an intense orgasm that almost made me cry, followed by lots of shame of what I've done afterwards. I am still close with said friend and see his dad once in a while. To this day, whenever I see his dad in flip-flops, I cringe with shame and embarrassment over something that happened 15 plus years ago. Despite being in serious relationships, I still count this moment as one of the top 3 of the most intense orgasms I've had in my life. Well, that's 3 embarrassing things I have admitted. I'm on a roll. Edit. I have been blessed by the Reddit gods. Thank you for your forgiveness and your offering. Whenever I think sexual thoughts I sneeze. It has gotten to the point where if I ever sneeze my girlfriend just gives me a stare and says no. When I was a little kid, I used to go to ladies' washroom in my school. They were much cleaner than gents and I hate peeing outside of the stalls. So I figured why not? But one day, I saw the toilet water being filled with blood and since then, I stopped using ladies' washroom. I only have one testicle, the right one, and often use the term I'd give my left testicle for that. It has now become an inside joke between my wife and I. I have smacked my face on our glass door and the side window of vehicles so many times my husband thinks I need a helmet. How it happens, something will catch my attention, my dog's barking. Hearing the cat food bowl get knocked over, my husband pointing at something as we drive by, and I'll overly excitedly go to press my face against the glass to see. I do it every damn time. Husband also likes to find candles for me to smell in the store because I somehow smash my nose onto the wax, or nearly bust my lip on the rim of the glass while I am holding the candle. I have imaginary interviews in the tub with talk show hosts about my life and how I became famous. I like to change it up. I rehearse before having important conversations. The other day I not only vomited on my lover's big dick, I simultaneously pissed and shat on his floor. My freshman year in college I lived in dorms that had community bathrooms but each room had their own sink. Weird combo I know. It was such a pain to have to get up in the middle of the night to walk to the bathroom. Anyway, one night I went out with members of my club sports team to the bars and got blindingly drunk. Somehow staggered back to my dorm room. Somehow avoided the questions of our and got changed and into bed. Now I forgot to mention that my and my roommate's beds were both elevated off the ground as if they were top bunks, despite being separate from one another. Right before I went to sleep I realized I had to pee. In my drunken stupor I decided it was a better idea to try and kneel on my bed and pee off the side into the sink rather than try and walk to the bathroom. Started peeing into sink. Fell backwards drunkenly still peeing into the air. Passed out while peeing straight up into the air like a whale shooting water out of a blowhole. Like a pee whale, yeah. Woke up the next morning. Realized what had happened. Shamefully ate some cornflakes. Then Lysol bombed the room and torched the sheets, mini rug, hamper and everything else that had been violated. TLDR drunkenly came home in college dorm and accidentally gave my room a golden shower. I farted in yoga today. I owned it. I used to think whoever ducked harder in the relationship while having sex determined the gender of the baby. Which makes no sense. I sometimes confuse right and left. Until about a year ago I thought facade was pronounced facade. I've recently taken a liking to having a finger up my butt. Them prostate orgasms are intense methodicas and now I'm slightly addicted to them. It's weird I out my girlfriend and now I think she secretly thinks I'm gay. While I'm proud of the two rubber ducky porn montage music videos I made in 2014, NSFW, and in 2018, Pornhub.com, NSFW. I would be quite embarrassed if people found out how much of a porn expert I am. I was on vacation somewhere in Spain. I was religiously working out back then. So I even got a contract for this local gym. For this 1 month. Met this girl there. A local. Read. Spanish. First only small talk. Then we went on some dates. First going to the pool with her brothers. Later going out alone. I really liked her. And she was sexy. But I didn't dare to talk much. Since my Spanish was poor. I figured we were friends. We were out on a date. Playing pool billet after having some arepas, similar to tacos. When suddenly she puts some egg-shaped plastic container into my hand. It looks like one of those containers that contain small prizes you get from those carnival machines. You know, the ones with the claw that you operate. Trying to grab a stuffed animal or whatever. If you don't win a real prize, you get a loser's prize. Think like some cheap metal flag pin or something. So we were there playing pool billet. And she pushes this plastic egg container into my hand. I smile and say something like muchas gracias and pocket the egg. Preparing for my next shot. She shakes her head in protest. She gestures at my pocket. She also says something, well, a lot, in Spanish. Mostly. I understand no. I'm lost. Finally, she loses her patience. Facepalms and shoves her hand down my pocket. Where I keep my eggs. Pulls out the plastic one. Opens it. It contains a condom. I finally understand. I go beet red. I'm such an idiot. I was standing in line at Walmart and the guy's dentures in front of me fell out onto the ground. I didn't realize what he dropped, so I bent down to get them and saw it was a full set of teeth. I then decided not to touch them since he has to put them in his mouth. After standing back up I felt like that was rude and he might think I didn't touch them because they are gross. I changed my mind and bent back down to grab them, but as my hand was like 3 inches away I thought to myself that he definitely doesn't want me to touch them, so I stood back up. The entire time this guy was standing there watching me bend down and stand up several times. The final time I stood up he locked eyes. He gave me a weird look. Then snatched them aggressively and walked away. I still have no idea if I should have grabbed them or not. It was just embarrassing having him watch me be indecisive about his teeth. I audibly shit myself in a boardroom meeting once. There were about 7 or 8 other people in the room and it happened while my boss was speaking. He stopped talking and there were some gasps. I didn't know what to do other than profusely apologize and go home. Next day I apologized to my boss and told him I'd been ill. I still work at the same company and it hurts every day. This was 2 years ago. I always used to volunteer to help out with first day registration at my middle school. All my friends gave me crap for being a teacher's pet sucker. The real reason I did it was if you volunteered you got to pick your locker rather than having one randomly assigned. And I had a gigantic crush on my English teacher. So both 7th and 8th grade years of middle school I wound up with a locker directly across from his classroom so I could see him every day. And I found the most ridiculous excuses possible to have to go to my locker. I may have also sent him the world's most cringe-inducing anonymous Valentine my 8th grade year. I'm pretty sure he knew it was me, but I didn't care. I was completely smitten. So it was kind of like that episode of The Simpsons where Lisa gets a crush on Mr. Bergstrom. Except it wasn't charming in any way. It was awkward and terrible and a wee bit stalkerish. Not having the chance to apologize to him for being such a ducking weirdo is among my biggest regrets in life. Unfortunately he died unexpectedly just after I started high school. Edit. No, I didn't kill him. I could have phrased that better. He had a massive heart attack while at school, thankfully not while he was teaching. It was unexpected because he was very vocally a vegetarian and very into running. Also, whoever gilded me, I'm glad you enjoyed my cringiness. When I was 13 I wrote a pretty detailed Naruto fanfiction. That wouldn't be so embarrassing except for that fact that the details included me and a character who was 26 playing strip poker. Among other things. Here's where I really ducked myself over. I then decided to print the story out so I could read it later and make edits. However, I decided to bring it into the bathroom to read while I took a bath and left it in there when I was done. My dad found it and read it, and let's just say he was not happy with the writing content his 13-year-old daughter decided to pick. Edit. I'm glad you find my ghosts gold worthy. Hopefully this didn't bring up too many painful memories for anyone. I never knew the spleen was a real organ. The name sounded so silly to me that I thought it was a joke. When did I find out it was an organ? In med school. Edit. A lot of people are asking why I didn't learn this stuff in pre-med. I'm not American, so we go straight into med school. Stuff like anatomy and physiology forms the first year of med school for us.